Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are having another wonderful evening of podcasting with these three lovely-looking men on my screen. This is the Four Guys Roundtable Show. I did notice, some clean-shaven faces. AJ's looking a little scruffy. I'm not used to that.
I just shaved yesterday.
He's growing something for a flavor saver for later on. Who the hell knows? Well, but excuse me. Oh, sorry, I got off topic. Ladies and gentlemen, hello. We have another great show, Four Guys Roundtable Show. With, AKA Coach Jervy, AG Nitro, and I'm ignoring Darth Pat this time, so that's why he went last.
I think that was a TIE fighter that was coming across the screen.
Yeah, kind of like that. I don't know.
It could have been flying sideways. Yeah.
You got it by that one. Could be flying. Yep. Could be a TIE bomber flying sideways. Okay. How's everyone doing this evening?
It's a Saturday, so I got nothing to complain about.
Well, like I say whenever I walk into a room, where am I and what the hell's going on?
Okay. I'm confused by that question too. So, well, we are doing a podcast, so I guess that's what we're doing. We don't have a topic, so this is gonna be another fun-filled train. Well, I won't say wreck, but train ride.
This is like an open mic night. It's an open session. We'll just talk about whatever comes to mind. Why not? Oh, speaking of open minds, we talked about this the other day. Not sure if you guys saw it, but they released the rest of the top 100 for the PWI women's.
Okay, I've only seen the top 5 still, so.
Yes, I got to the rest of them today. I found them. Let me open my photos here.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't hear this, so this is news to me.
So, what? Damn it.
Bailey's 1, Becky's 2, Charlotte's 3, or Asuka's 3, Charlotte's 4, and Sasha's 5. That's 1 to 5.
Yeah. So
wow, they're all in the WWE too. That's crazy.
So the rest of the top 5.
Because AEW's women's division is so good.
Right.
All right, hit us with it, Joe.
Don't let me talk sooner or later so I can do the rest of this top 25 here. Is number 6. Tessa Blanchard is number 7.
Who is 6?
Rio is number 8. Io Shirai is 9. I might butcher this name because I don't remember how to pronounce it properly. Mayu Iwatani is number 10. Rhea Ripley is 11. Jordan Grace 12. Shayna Baszler 13. Thunder Rose 14. Kimberly 15. Nia Rose 16. Taya Valkyrie is 17. Katie Ray 18. Kylie Ray, I hate that shit, 19. Nikki Cross is 20. Kylie Sane is 21. Britt Baker is 22. Bianca Belair is 23. Dakota Kai 24. And Allison Kay is number 25.
I mean, I don't have a problem with that list. I mean, Shayna's on it, so, and Io's on it. Britt Baker's on it, so.
Whatever happened to Riho?
She hasn't been on AEW television forever.
Yeah, like 3-4 months, I think, probably. Maybe around 4 months.
Yeah.
I'll just go for the rest of the top 100. 26, Tegan Knox. 27, my favorite, Alexa Bliss. 28, Mobo Wantabe. 29, Mercedes. 30, I always heard this woman's name up. Deonna Purrazzo.
Okay.
Evo Lease is 31. Chris Statlander is 32. Jessica Havoc, 33. Candice LeRae, 34. LaFisto, 35. Mia Yim, 36. Leslie, 37. Priscilla Kelly, 39. You can tell Jade that his homegirl, Big Swallows, came in at 39. 40, Nicole Savvy, 41. Faye Jackson, 42. Rosemary, 43. Lacey Evans, 44. Sue Young, 45. Tony Storm.
Big Swall.
46,
You can probably stop at 50. You can probably stop at 50,
yeah.
Joe.
47 is Jamie Hayter. 48, Penelope Ford. 49, Rhea O'Reilly. And 50, Lainey Luck. Most of these females I've seen wrestle at least 4 or 5 times. They're not household names, most of them, but.
And most of those females, I can say I have never seen wrestle. And I was getting bored.
Also.
I was like, yeah, this list is pretty much shit because I have no idea who the hell these fucking people are. And once we got out of the top 25, I was kind of lost.
Big Swall.
Yeah, I mean, AEW has 12. They have 12 on there.
I mean, that's the women's wrestling is not like loaded with talent. I don't think right now. So
I think it's hard too because one, unless you're watching WWE or AEW. Well, I should say this: unless you're watching a lot of different programs, you're not going to know who a lot of these people are because they don't all wrestle on AEW or WWE. You got a lot of people. It's different little small places that are getting recognized because there's not as many women wrestlers. So there, you have to go far and wide to find top 100.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are on Impact, of course. I've seen them wrestle there. Some are on Ring of Honor. Some are on Glow. Not Glow. I was watching that earlier today.
Bring back Glow.
That's why. Wow was the other one, and New Japan, of course, for some of the other ones. So yeah, you gotta watch definitely a wide variety of.
They just had a goal line stand, Joe.
Oh, good. I'm not gonna be worried about that. So should everyone know, AJ is watching the Florida State North Carolina game. We are Florida State fans. We are winning.
This is the best we've looked in like 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely. The more important thing that I have on the right here side of me is the baseball gods are trying to tell us to go stick it up our asses. Because now we have 2 Game 7s and 1 Game 7 is on currently, and I do not want the Houston Astros to do jack shit.
Neither does anybody else.
Losing 3-0 in the bottom of the 5th.
Unless, of course, you're a Houston Astros fan, which means you just enjoy cheating and believe that it's okay.
Oh, come on. Sorry, Houston. Actually, not sorry.
And I lost interest as soon as the Phillies went out because I was like, well, if the Phillies aren't in it, who gives a fucking shit?
It's just crazy. So you have one team up 3-0, and the other team comes back and wins 3. So Game 7 is on right now, and the other one, Atlanta goes up 3-1, and Dodgers win the next 2, and now tomorrow's Game 7 for that one. Like,
the Dodgers might win that series. I think at this point, I think the Braves are in trouble.
I am going to pray for the Braves this season.
I mean, I want the Braves to win, but I just think the momentum swung completely in that series, like completely.
Yeah, I don't know.
It brings back memories of a series for me and Pat.
And what series would that be?
When the Yankees blew the 3-0 lead against the Red Sox.
Oh, yeah, that was a terrible series to watch. I remember seeing that unfold, and I'm like, oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, my God.
Of all teams, that's not the team you want to be losing a 3-0 lead to.
Yes,
especially
it's not.
That rivalry.
Because if my memory serves me correctly, that's also the year then the Red Sox went on to win the World Series and become World Series champions.
Yes.
Okay, good. I was thinking the right year. Excellent.
Yes, you were thinking the right year.
Well, you know.
I have no idea what you guys were just talking about.
Sure you don't, Pat. You've blanked it from your memory.
Yeah, I have no recollection of any of those.
It was a
things.
terrible, terrible nightmare.
The year that doesn't exist in baseball history for Pat.
No recollection. No.
There is a
And Mitch Williams never threw the meatball to Dave Winfield either.
That was Joe Carter.
Joe Carter, whatever. Joe
Dave
Carter,
Winfield
Dave Winfield.
Dave Winfield was only on the Blue Jays the previous season.
So
and if you were about to say Joe Carter, Dave Winfield, what's the difference? The Hall of Fame.
Well, I know there's a big difference, but in my mind, either way, they were both pretty decent power hitters. So,
yeah, Carter was kind of overrated.
The fans here are excited because this is the best record the Clowns have had since 1994.
Yeah, and who was the coach in 1994?
A young man by the name of Bill Belichick
They play Pittsburgh this week, and I believe this is the first game since the old helmet hitting incident with Pittsburgh and stuff. So from last season.
Ooh, it's going to be loads of fun.
Let's just say the Eagles blew it on Sunday against the Steelers. They had a chance to win that game and fucking blew it.
Well, the Giants should have beaten the Cowboys too. So.
Hey, the Giants could win this week, Pat. I was looking at the games this weekend. There are some terrible games. I mean, there are like 3 or 4 games of teams that are like 1-4 or worse playing each other. There are some really bad games this weekend.
Yeah.
You know why that is, don't you?
Oh, no.
2020.
Because life hates you.
Well, I mean, this just happens to be the weekend where there's a bunch of crummy games. So.
Well, let's just face it. The NFL this year, more than any year that I can remember, is like either you're a real good team or you're kind of shitty.
I think you're kind of right about that, Jeremy.
Like right now, there doesn't seem to be the in-between team that's like just hanging around 500. It's like either you have a good record or you have a shitty record, and like the Eagles fall on the shitty record, the Cowboys fall on the shitty record, Washington football team falls into shitty record. Oh, the Giants. Oh, just a sec, the whole NFC East. Isn't the shitty record zone.
NFC least because that's a clever nickname.
They just like it because it rhymes.
There used to be a day and age when the NFC East was the division that you had to beat in the NFC. Like if you were gonna what?
Not now.
No. No. If you come out of the NFC East and you win a game in the playoffs, you're lucky.
Yeah, that was kind of like late 80s and most of the 90s.
Well, yeah, because the Eagles it was between Dallas and the Eagles almost all the 90s, and the Giants too there for a little bit. I believe they had a couple good teams in the 90s, but a lot of it was the Eagles because Donovan McNabb was there, and from the 80s, 90s, 2000, early 2000s era, and that. But yeah, it's gone downhill. Like just bad coaches, bad drafts.
And
it's all around. Like I don't understand Dallas. They picked up Mike McCarthy. Like honestly, like I'm not a Dallas fan, but I'm thinking you guys are really shooting yourselves in the foot right now. Picking up Mike McCarthy was probably not the best thing to go because he is not the kind of coach that brings a team together and gets them to play as a team, and that has been your problem as an organization. You have this like on paper immaculate team, and they can't play together to win games. They can't pull it all together. And you bring in Mike McCarthy. I don't think that's a good idea.
Defense is fucking horrible too. Jesus Christ.
Yep. Yeah, that's terrible. That's the one thing. Like the Eagles, I can say as an Eagles fan, the Eagles aren't giving up a ton of points. They just can't score enough points to keep up with the teams usually. Like last week was an anomaly playing against the Steelers where they put up 20-some points. That was kind of the anomaly. But they can't score enough to keep up with other teams because other teams run all over their defense because they Jim Schwartz doesn't believe in linebackers. Like he honestly doesn't believe. I feel like he doesn't believe in them because I couldn't tell you who our linebackers are.
I think I do think Pittsburgh's pretty good this year. I think Pittsburgh's I think Roethlisberger kind of got his second wind, and I think Pittsburgh might win 11 games. I think Pittsburgh's a pretty good team, one of the better teams this year. So.
They actually are.
I think he really helped with being off last year, and with his injury and actually getting himself back into shape physically and mentally too. You could definitely see it. You could definitely see it.
Well, yeah, and he's got some talent that can play. I mean, what's that guy's name that blew up last game? Got 4 touchdowns.
Claypool.
Yeah, Claypool. The kid can play.
Schuster too. He's got Schuster too. So he's got
JoJo.
Yeah, Schuster doesn't seem to be doing a whole. At least he didn't do a lot in the Eagles game, but he's there. He's a threat.
Le'Veon Bell's a piece of shit, in my opinion. By the way, so
let's see what he does in Kansas City. Whatever.
Well, see, that's the thing. Kansas City's got a good offensive line to run behind, so he's going to look good again. And not to say that Le'Veon Bell is not good, but he needs a good line to start. Right?
I mean, he did play for the Jets.
He did, and the Jets didn't have a very good line, and he needs a good line like the Pittsburgh Steelers had to be able to start his running progression because of the way he runs. He runs with that hesitation step that messes people up, but that's because he had a good line. He could pull that kind of running style off. Kansas City, once again, has a good offensive line to be able to do that, so he's going to probably look really good.
I mean, look, any running back that's played for the Jets in the last 6 years have done shit. I mean, we let Matt Forte go. We didn't sign him, and he was great for us. He went to New York and shit the bed because their offensive lines were horrible. He got injured because, he was getting his ass whooped. He was getting pounded because offensive lines couldn't do shit. Every running back that goes there goes there to die, pretty much.
Well, and I'm pretty sure the Eagles had Matt Forte for a year before they let him go. Pretty sure they did.
Was Jordan Howard.
Oh, that was Jordan. Well, yeah, Jordan Howard. That was no.
Yeah, you got them for a couple of years.
Yeah. So
he played
it's just
Miami now or some jazz. Yeah. New York's the place. The Jets are the place to go to die for running backs.
I just know the Eagles like to trade with the Chicago Chicago Bears, and they like to trade with the Buffalo Bills for some reason. They love to trade with those two teams, and it never works out in our favor.
Yeah, never does. Take them.
Here, we'll take your old used and abused player. Sure, that sounds like a great job.
I mean, your baseball team did it too. I mean, you took our old shitty players. We got Ryan Sandberg. You took Mitch Williams. I don't remember what we got from Mitch Williams, but you got Mitch Williams, and look what happened to that one.
And here's the pitch. Oh, shit.
Deep fly ball to left field. Game-winning home run. Sir Darth Patrick, how is your day and week have been going? Tell us. Anything exquisite going on in your life? Anything exquisite going on at work? Any high-profile clients coming through with tax evasion?
Tax evasion.
Damn.
Any mafia clients?
Yes. Ooh, yes. You tell. Oh.
Yes, we have some mafia clients. All right.
I'm loving that.
Would you like to give up their names?
Yes, Vincent Gambino and John Gotti.
Oh, shit.
Oh, that's funny. So, I think we ought to bring it up since we're talking sports now. I think we have to bring up.
Here we go.
The wonderful debate, of course, continues as we've been seeing, in our good friend Theo who sent us two wonderful videos from some, big time sports analysts about the debate of LeBron versus Jordan.
LeBum. Let's just refer to him as LeBum from now on.
Okay. I will still refer to him as LeBron. You're more than welcome to refer to him as LeBum. I don't mind. Don't care. But, the debate, as we know, still goes on. And I know where we all lie. We all, unless Darth Pat has a different opinion, I'm pretty sure we all believe that Jordan is definitely the superior player of all time.
If he does, he's not my friend no more. No. Love you, man. I'm only kidding.
Pat has said that he doesn't hate LeBron, but I believe Pat has stated he thinks that Jordan is the better player.
So we all know that in recent history in basketball, the LA Lakers won a championship, which gave LeBron his 4th championship out of 10 times being in the NBA Finals.
Losing record.
But it made him the 3rd player to have won championships with 3 different teams.
Right, and I don't think that's impressive. See, a lot of people are using that as a tool to say it's impressive. I don't think it is. So
no, I was just pointing out the fact that it's just it's a rarity. And the funny thing was, his teammate Danny Green instantly became the 4th.
Yeah, very true. So,
yes, I just found it funny because I was looking that up because since Danny Green went to North Carolina, I was like, well, wait a minute. If the Lakers win, that means he's going to have won a title with a 3rd different team because he won with the Spurs and he won last year with the Raptors. So I went to look it up to see how many other people had done that and saw that it was only 2 other people prior. Then I was like, oh, so Green will be the 3rd. And then I went, oh, well, he and LeBron will be the 3rd and the 4th. Like, that's kind of interesting that it only ever happened twice, and then all of a sudden that number doubles in the span of 1 year. I just found that interesting.
Well, and so a couple things happen with that is because I'm not sure who the first 2 are. Does anybody know who? Pat,
Kareem.
No.
Who are the other 2 that won with 3 different teams, Darth Pat?
Well, I mean, do you want to have a stumper question right now?
No, I want to be able to make a point.
Robert Horry and John Sally.
Okay, so Robert Horry and John Sally. So they were still part of the free agent era when free agency was going. Okay, so I wanted to see if there was
pretty much the only way that it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was the free agent era when those 2 guys did it, or that's why I wanted to know the name. So that point would be irrelevant that I was going to try and make. So
we have LeBron switching teams, and instead of like 25 years ago, I sent you guys that thing that Adam sent me when the Pistons couldn't beat the Celtics, they persevered and they kept trying and they finally overcame them. And then it happened with the Bulls where they couldn't beat the Pistons and they tried and eventually they overcame them. LeBron, instead of doing that, was like, fuck this, I'm going somewhere else because I can't do it on this team, so I'm going to go somewhere else and with better players and do it. So, and that's what he did twice.
Right. And so here's the other thing that goes along with that. LeBron did it for one, he wanted to win, which I get. If you want to win and they're not going to build a team around you and just expect you to be the only guy that does anything, because let's face it, Cleveland really did not try and build a legitimate team around him. They tried to get mediocre players and thinking that LeBron could do it. And I'm sorry, even Michael Jordan needed other. What's that?
The first time that he went to the finals with that shitty Cleveland team?
Yeah.
So, and let's be honest, being Jordan fans and in our stance, Jordan needed other good players, not mediocre players. He needed other good players. Like Scottie Pippen was a really good player, if not a star. He did play. He was an all-star quite a few times. Horace Grant was another really good player. B.J. Armstrong, John Paxson, and guys like that. They were all really good players, and they had key roles within the game. So I get LeBron trying to go to another team to put himself around players that could win, but that wasn't the only reason he went. It was also a money issue. He left for more money too. So that's kind of a thing that irks me. Like a guy that by no means needs to have a ridiculously large contract went to a team with other that were putting other superstars, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and some other good role players, and left because he wanted more money, didn't want to stick around. And then when he came back to Cleveland, it wasn't to take a pay cut. He got another huge contract the second time he came back to Cleveland.
Yeah, so he was lucky because Kyrie was still in his rookie contract per se, I think. So he was able to bank on that. So that's why they were able to give him that max contract and trade for Kevin Love too, another superstar from another team brought on.
Right. So then he's tired of Cleveland again. And where does he go? He goes to the Lakers because he knows if he goes to the Lakers will fish out the money to be able to bring other people on and pay him big money too. Because he didn't go to – it's not like he took a pay cut when he went to L.A. He got another large contract. So it's two things. You got him going to teams where he feels he can win. I don't know if he felt that way when he went back to Cleveland, but it was – I think it was kind of that reason. You know, maybe they'll put a team together and win and they're going to pay me big money. Until he went to – he went to L.A. for the same thing. So, that's kind of my knock on him. It's not just, I want to be around other players that are going to help me win. It's I keep going for bigger and bigger contracts. And to each their own. You can say that's not a bad thing. That's the way the NBA is. That's the way any sport is. And I agree. That's the way any sport is. But if you in my opinion, if you really, really, really want to win, money should not be the object. It shouldn't be how big is your contract. It should be how can we bring other players to my team that are going to contribute in the way that I need them to so that this team can win. Jordan didn't look for other teams to go to and say, you know what, you guys aren't going to bring on the players for another 5-6 years and fuck yous and I'm gone. He went to Chicago. When he got drafted by Chicago, his sole purpose was to make Chicago a winning city. To change the culture of that city and that basketball team to a winning fucking culture. LeBron did not go to any of those cities that he went to, Cleveland, Miami, L.A., to change the culture into a winning culture. He went there for money, and he went there to try and win a championship for himself. It had nothing to do with that city.
And play with his friends, pretty much. I mean, Cleveland,
and he made it okay. He made it okay to do that. So then Durant did it because Durant couldn't beat the Warriors. So he's like, well, I can't beat him, so I'm going to join him. Like, he made it okay for people to do that kind of stuff.
The decision just that, unfortunately, no matter all the negatives and the positives that came out of his decision, it doesn't make a difference. Unfortunately, it's more negative than positive. Did he donate the money from that thing, that show, charity? Absolutely. Great. Outside of basketball, he did a great thing. But unfortunately, it just put him on that villain pedestal, no matter what. And people say, he had a harder path than Jordan because in high school he was the chosen one. Well, you know what? Whose fucking fault was that? Good job, media outlet. It's your fault. Every sports network putting him as the chosen one. Sports Illustrated him, put him on the fucking front cover of Sports being as the chosen one. Yeah. It's your fault. You guys fucking put this upon him. And when Cleveland wasn't ready to fork out money at that time to get more people, he decided to go with his friends and shack up with them in fucking South Beach. And he, like AJ said, he let it be okay to do that. Unfortunately, people, Durant, he let Durant do it. Now you see Durant and Kyrie and DeAndre Jordan in the Nets, and it's a rotating thing. You're probably going to see more players do it. Unfortunately, it is what it is. I mean, and here's another point too with the players that you have to remember something, and people forget about this. When Jordan came into the league, people were like, "Oh, well, it took him a while to get past the first round." Well, no shit. The playoffs weren't that expanded at the time. And look who he had to fucking go through. Boston, who was winning titles. The Milwaukee Bucks were a good team at that time, too. There are other teams in the East, Detroit, too, that were very, very good. So as the years went on, he kept having to face those fucking teams in the first round because the Bulls didn't have shit. He made them overachieve. So they were getting a lower seed and having to play the higher seed. That's not an easy road to take. Another thing too is most of those Bulls players were drafted. Bill Cartwright was a trip. Like, Bill Cartwright's no fucking all-star. You have to remind yourself too, up until Jordan retired, the only players that made the all-star team was Jordan and Pippen. No one else had made the all-star team.
No.
B.J. Armstrong, Horace Grant, Pippen, and I want to say somebody else made the All-Star team the year he retired. I think they only had 3. I think it was just Horace, BJ, and Pippen made the All-Star team when Jordan retired. Maybe it's Tony Kukoc. I don't remember. But anyway, that's all they had. Pippen was making some first and second team, all NBA, some defensive stuff, but he didn't have any other All-Stars per se. Even in the second one, yes, they got Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman was towards the end of his career, but he was still a rebounding machine and an instigator and defense. He wasn't some big-time scorer like LeBron's had all his winning championships, getting all-stars and all-stars that are scorers, to come in and help him. So, you got to see who Jordan played with compared to who LeBron did. Who really had a harder road? Yeah, the media made you the chosen one, and you had to live up to expectations. But the type of defense and the type of league in the 80s and the 90s as was, where they were beating the shit out of each other and fucking Jordan's getting clotheslined and other players are getting clotheslined by guys just as big as LeBron. You're going to tell me who's having a harder time getting to the pinnacle of the NBA championship? LeBron or Jordan? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, where's the fucking common sense in regards to that? Yeah, LeBron came out of high school, so he's going to have a longer career. Jordan played 3 years in fucking college, and he retired for a year and a half. I mean, I get it. His longevity is going to aid LeBron in his talk, all this bullshit. But at the same point, look at everything Jordan did do. Giannis just won.
He won the MVP and the Defensive Player of the Year in the same season. Jordan's the only other person to do that.
No, there's 4. 4 people. 4 people have done that. Out of those 4 people, Jordan's Giannis, forward, Tim Duncan, forward, center, and Akeem was the other one who did that. So a center. So you technically have a forward, 2 centers, and a hybrid center forward. Those are only 4. So Jordan's doing a lot of shit as a guard in a big man's league for the whole 80s, for the whole 90s. You know what I mean? And that, I get tired of hearing about, well, LeBron has more assists and rebounds. Who gives a shit? He's a power forward. That's what he's supposed to have. Fucking Magic Johnson was a power forward, small forward, play center. That's what he fucking did. You could put Magic Johnson's stats, compare them to LeBron's, and you could look at a lot of those years, and they're going to be very similar. I can put them up and go to anybody and be like, whose stats are these? And they're not going to fucking know.
And here's the thing. So I've looked at their stats. Like, I've compared stats, career stats next to each other, and they're really not that different. Yes, LeBron, I think, has the edge in rebounds here and maybe an assist here. But other than that, like, Jordan has more steals, so Jordan has more steals. And people would say, oh, well, but that's because he's a guard, so he should have more steals. Well, yeah, that's the common sense, just like LeBron should have more rebounds, like you pointed out. So their stats are very, very comparable. And that's why I don't really like stats when you're especially when people are so close in stat wise. So you got to kind of throw that out. And the 3-pointers, that's a stupid thing because both Jordan and LeBron's are the freaking same. They're within like percentage points of each other.
And if Jordan was playing in this era, he would, the way he plays, you damn sure he would fucking work on his 3-point shooting, and he would be a good 3-point shooter in this league. Without a doubt.
Well, and no offense, everybody that thinks LeBron was such a better 3-point shooter, they're like exactly almost within, like I said, within percentage points of each other. So LeBron's not that great of a 3-point shooter. He's relatively decent. He's not the Steph Currys of the league. He's just not there, and rightfully he shouldn't be. He's not a point guard, shooting guard. He's a forward.
And here's some other stats I have pulled up. MJ is the only player in NBA history to have 200 steals and 100 blocks in the same season, and then did it back-to-back seasons.
Right, and their blocks are LeBron and Michael's blocks are within 1 point of each other, or something like that, 1 or 2 points.
So I think these stats were last as at the end of not this current NBA season, last NBA season. MJ has 893 blocks in his career, while LeBron has played way more seasons, 853.
And the other thing about LeBron too is his most memorable playoff moment is a fucking block. It's not even a shot or something like that he did. It's a fucking block that didn't even win the game. It's a defensive play. Jordan's got 2 shots that are we're gonna see for the rest of our life. LeBron's biggest playoff play was a fucking block.
Right, but did that lead to them winning that game? It wasn't like a game-winning block, but it didn't lead to them being able to win that game or some shit like that.
It helped. It happened with about two. It happened with about 2.5 minutes left in the game, right. So they didn't go down. They didn't go down and make a basket right then. They made a basket. Nobody could score. Nobody scored shit in the last 4 minutes of that game. Neither team could score. So.
Right. And see, that's the one thing. My nephew mentioned them. He's like, "Well, what about LeBron's block in that one playoff game that they?" I said, "Yeah, but that didn't win the game." He's like, "Yeah, it did. They won the game." I was like, "Oh, okay, so they won the game." But I had because I've never seen that block because when LeBron came in the league, I was pretty much done watching basketball except for when Duncan and the Spurs were going into the playoffs. That was when I started watching the basketball each year because I'm a big Tim Duncan fan, but. If that block does not stop the other team from scoring with a game-winning bucket, that block doesn't mean shit because that's the same as any other person blocking a shot within a game.
And people have that odd playoff lists of spectacular plays very high. Some have in the top 10, some have in the top 5, and it's that wasn't a be-all end-all block. That block was done. Both teams went back and forth up and down the court and didn't do shit.
And it was a chase. It was a chase from behind, right? It was from behind. Yeah. Well, then if you're going to throw that in there, what about Tayshaun Prince's blocks that he used to do all the time for fucking behind because he had those giant ass long. He had those fucking monkey arms that his arms were ridiculously long. It was crazy.
That's why that 45 seconds at the end of Jordan's last championship with the Bulls. Where he steals the ball and then goes down and makes the shot. That's why that's way more impressive than anything I've seen anybody else do because he did everything. That steal to me was way more important than the block because the steal happened with 40 seconds left and Jordan went down and won the game. So that steal and I understand that we live in the age where a lot of people suck LeBron's dick and they love him and they worship him and stuff, and some of us don't. I also think that the steal that Larry Bird had against the Pistons was a bigger deal than LeBron's block. But it was one was in the Eastern Conference Finals, one was in the finals. So this one's just because it was in the finals doesn't mean the play was any different. A play is a play. That steal by Bird might be the best defensive play I've ever seen. Besides Jordan stealing the ball from Malone, because that shouldn't happen. That steal by Bird should not have happened.
Right. And it's funny because Jordan talks about that steal, and he's like, I knew they were going to Malone. They've been going to Malone all night in that play. He's like, and Malone didn't pay attention. He's like, I stayed home because I knew Malone was getting the ball. So he's like, I came from his backside. And that just tells – there's another thing. That's the mentality that some players like Jordan had. Other players had it too, but Jordan was he remembers – what plays are going on throughout the game that he's like, this is their bread and butter play. This is how they've been trying to beat us all game. If I pay attention and stay home on the weak side, I can make something happen. Not a lot of players can do that. There's some, but not a lot of players that can say they're that intelligent in the game. Michael Jordan had an intelligence about the game, just like Larry Bird did, just like Magic Johnson did, that is an intangible thing in the game. And I have not watched enough LeBron games to really say, but I would have to, with my limited knowledge of watching LeBron play his career, I would have to say that he has basketball intelligence, but I don't think it's that level of basketball intelligence that he's going to pick up on, a tendency of a team and make a game-winning play because that's what he needs to do. I think he's going to stay on his player, play his defense on his player, and maybe come from a weak side and make a block.
I think Duncan might have had a higher basketball IQ than LeBron too. I might even throw Duncan in there. So
Yeah.
That would be legitimate.
We also got this moment in game 5 where LeBron walked off the court with 10 seconds left in the game, and that's not cool. That's not right. Like, you're an asshole for doing that. And like Adam texted me and said, like, kids are going to see him do that and they're going to think it's okay because LeBron did it. He's like, Kobe never would have done that. Jordan never would have done that. And it's classless to do that. And the LeBron people like try to make it out like it wasn't that big of a deal. And it was a big deal. You're on television. Like, all of my friends that don't like Steph Curry constantly remind me that he threw his mouthpiece in the crowd once because he got mad. And I'm like, okay, he shouldn't have done that. It was, and I'm not defending him. I'm not defending him for doing it. So when the LeBron people try to like play it off like it wasn't a big deal, it was a big deal. And instead of playing it off, you should at least be like, okay, he probably shouldn't have done that. That was classless, and he made an ass of himself by doing that. And it's just nobody cares. Nobody. It's like, oh, it's LeBron. He can do this and get away with it. We're not going to do anything. But if it was like somebody who has a worse reputation, like when Randy Moss acted like he was going to moon the Green Bay crowd, he didn't even do it. He just acted like he was going to do it, and he got fined. I don't think he should have got fined because he didn't do it. You fine him if he actually moons the crowd. If you pantomime it, so what? And it's because Moss's reputation wasn't great. So, and that's not fair to hold these different guys to different standards just because this guy is a better person or whatever. And that's like what happens with LeBron, because this is the second time in LeBron's career he's walked off the court before the game was over. He did it early in his career, probably third or fourth season. Nobody cared. Nobody made a big deal out of it because it was him. But I remember it because I thought it was classless when he did it then. So clearly he hasn't grown up that much because he's doing the same thing 12 years later in the NBA Finals on television. And the thing that made it stand out was the shot clock ran out. So half of the Lakers were in the locker room, and they needed 5 guys on the court to inbound the ball, and they didn't have those people out there because they were all in the locker room already. That's classless, like to act like that's like acting like children.
So LeBron did that this season?
Yeah, he just did it in the finals, Jeremy, in like game 5.
Yeah, he did.
What?
There was 10 seconds left in the game, and he walked to the locker room. He was
knew they were going to lose?
Yes.
So he screwed his team. I mean, they were going to lose anyways, but still. He screws his team from being able to even inbound the ball because they don't have enough guys on the court.
Other people followed him. He did it, so then Unibrow followed him. Like, other people followed him because they're like, if LeBron's doing it, we're going to do it. So I think they had 3 people maybe left on their bench when there was only a tenth of a second left, and this is the NBA. They have to follow the rules. You still have to inbound the ball when the shot clock runs out. So they had like 3 guys on the bench. So guys had to come back out to get on the court to inbound the ball. And everybody's like, oh, who cares? Like the LeBron people. Oh well, it's okay. So what?
In my opinion, now I know players in the NBA, it's much different. You don't line up and you don't shake hands at the end of a game. They might shake each other, like friends that they have on the other team. They might shake their hand and be like, yo, good game and stuff like that. But the one thing that sports figures have a tendency to forget, and being a youth basketball coach, this really kind of hits home for me, is they are setting the stage for young kids who play sports. Like, they are going to emulate your ass.
Yep.
If you walk off with a tenth of a second, those kids are going to say, well, if we lost, it's okay to come sit down and say, fuck it.
Yep.
And that's not good at all. It's one thing for kids, and it drives me nuts with all the 3 balls that kids want to try and shoot. They want to be Steph Curry. They want to be all these other guys that shoot fucking threes. That's one thing. Like, I can deal with that as a coach because, I'll let them do that. We can throw it into a scheme. But what I can't tolerate is NBA players, NFL players, whatever sport you're in, them emulating the bad behaviors that these guys put out there, the showboating, the walking off before the game's over, and not showing the sportsmanship that sports was built on. There's a reason that it's called sportsmanship, and not just ship. You know, it's such a crucial part of the game. It's respect for the game. It's respect for the other team. It's respect for yourself, respect for your coaches, respect for the fucking fans who are your parents and loved ones that are coming out to see you finish a game and say, okay, yes, you lost. And it sucks, but at least you finished the game and you held your head high and you go back out the next day for practice and you bust your fucking ass so you don't have to think about losing again.
Bird, Magic, Jordan, Duncan, David Robinson, there's guys on that list who are like that, who are classy guys who didn't do dumb shit, and you don't hear about them doing the dumb shit. Another thing I did also tell Joe recently is, and injuries happen, okay? I'm not saying they don't, but my brother was like, oh, wow, everybody picked on LeBron because he was in the East, and the East was easy. So now he went to the West, and he won in the West. And I said, yes, but there was one thing missing. The Golden State Warriors were not in the playoffs this year because of injuries, and the Lakers did not have to go through the best team in the West the last 5 or 6 years, that juggernaut in Golden State. They didn't have to play them. They avoided them completely, and all these other teams that were in the playoffs that the Lakers beat, I knew they were going to beat them. The Bucks were the only team who I thought could beat the Lakers because Giannis is good and he's been there. Harden did what he does every year. He melts down in the postseason. There was no team in the West that had been there before that knew how to handle this kind of pressure. If he would have had to play the Warriors, Steph and Clay have been there and they know how to play in big games. Both of them at huge games, at huge moments in their career. So he dodged that bullet. I know it happens, but he did dodge that bullet for sure.
Yeah, he played the teams in the West that had like a lot of young players that are very good, up and coming, that just they're there but they're not there yet. And you have Harden and Westbrook, the turnover machine in the playoffs, Harden who disappears in the playoffs. The Clippers, listen, it doesn't matter. To be honest with you, I don't think it matters who the Clippers players are, who the Clippers coach are. I just think that team is just
they're just historically
jinxed.
Bad.
They
or jinxed, jinxed is a good word.
I feel like there's something there to happen that year to win. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. They're just going to. They could have 5 All-Stars and they're just going to lose. They're never going to make it to the finals.
I didn't look into this very much, but I read supposedly in the interview that LeBron was like talking to the Larry O'Brien trophy, saying that the trophy cheated on him with the Lakers or whatever, or with the Warriors and stuff the last couple of years. What the fuck is he talking? Like, seriously.
The other thing too, people are getting tired of is that he's yearning for respect. Like he has one interview with somebody like, oh, I'll talk about the GOAT debate privately with my friends at home. You're not going to get me to say anything. You guys know I love Jordan. I had Jordans, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
I'll let you guys in the media figure that out.
Bullshit.
But yet, you already on video said, well, that one got me to go.
Yep. When we beat the Warriors, I became the GOAT.
And then he cries and whines about not getting enough first-place votes during the regular season when AD was the best player on your team and not really you. You were playing second fiddle to him. It's kind of like, and the respect thing, it's kind of like, dude, you already have your respect. You're looking for respect out in left field from people you shouldn't be worried about if they respect you or not. That's irrelevant for you as an NBA player. But he wants the argument. He wants those people to respect him and anoint him. I feel like he just wants to be like, yep, you're the GOAT, LeBron. But yeah, it's the majority now. We all think it's
old NBA players and stuff. That's who he wants the respect from, and he's not getting it from some of the old time, like the Birds and the Magics and those guys. Yeah,
Isaiah Thomas. That's who he's got. Yeah. That's the only old timer.
And Kendrick Perkins.
And that's because Isaiah Thomas doesn't like Larry Bird. He doesn't like Jordan. He doesn't like Magic. He doesn't like any of the guys that he had to compete against because they all beat him. Like, he doesn't like those guys. He doesn't like anybody that had to beat him because they don't have. And here's the thing: they don't have anything nice to say about Isaiah Thomas because Isaiah Thomas
was a prick.
And it's sad and the fucked up thing is like as a kid, like I was not a Detroit fan, but my brother and my good friend were.
And I liked Isaiah Thomas, but he's a dick.
I had a lot of respect for Isaiah Thomas back then, but as he got out of the NBA and got into these other roles, it's like, man, Isaiah Thomas is, as AJ mentioned, a dick. He's a prick. Like he's not he's not a nice guy. So I can only imagine having to play against him in the NBA, and the dirty shit that he used to pull, because he was a dirty player. He used to pull some dirty shit, like fucking, things that I would never teach my kids, but I'm sure they're gonna try and do on their own. Pull jerseys, hold arms, do stupid shit that should be fouls and they should get it, and that. But he was a dirty player. Stockton was. I understand.
Stockton was dirty as hell.
Yeah, he was a dirty player. But it's like you got respect from the one guy that a lot of the other players that played with him around that same area don't respect him. It's like, so you get respect from the wrong old time player.
Joe, I did.
I think Jordan respects him. I think Jordan respects LeBron, but Jordan's just sick of the whole fucking debate too. It's like Jordan doesn't fucking care. He's like, I don't really care. Like, So
I looked. So there were. You were right, Joe, but Olajuwon, Giannis, and Jordan won those 2 awards in the same season. So when you were brought that up earlier, those 3 guys won Defensive Player of the Year and MVP in the same season. So there are more guys that did it in their career, but those are the 3 guys that won it in the same season. So to me, you win those 2 awards in the same season, you are clearly the best player in the NBA that season. If you're winning the MVP and the Defensive Player of the Year, there's no argument that anybody was better than you. If you win the award for both sides of the ball, you clearly are the best player in the NBA at that point.
I mean, it's longevity is giving him
in the playoffs. How many goddamn years?
I know. I'm saying, and that's fine. You can have all those playoff records. That's totally fine. I get it. But it's just one of those things where people really forget like what he's accomplishing during the season and whatnot. So I mean, one of Jordan's best seasons, like you have a 72-win team, you win the scoring title, you're the All-Star MVP, you're the league MVP, you're the Finals MVP, and you win the title.
There's not a lot more, and he probably also made first team all defense that year too. So
yeah, he probably made first all defense and first team. Plus the same, did similar shit like that in 86, 87 when he won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. There's a lot of things you can throw out there. It's just.
So we knew we had to bring it up.
Here's the other thing too. Jalen Rose brings this up too.
Yeah.
People are like celebrating him on multiple teams, but how many people have won 3-peats? And he's the only person to do it fucking twice. Mm-hmm. And if you want to talk about a big NBA, seasons of being in the playoffs and the finals, I mean, fucking Bill Russell did it 11 out of 13 years.
Yeah.
He won an NBA title and was in the playoffs 13 years in a row. I mean, different era. I get it. Not as many teams, not as many, say Hall of Famers or great players, but it's still an accomplishment.
Right. He doesn't get the credit. He doesn't get the credit he deserves sometimes, Bill Russell, because they didn't keep track of defensive stats and stuff back then. He was a really, really, really good player.
And he wasn't somebody who was averaging 20-plus points a game, Bill Russell, but he was averaging 15 to 20. But he was rocking out blocks out the ass. He was rocking out rebounds out the ass. He was a force to reckon with. So it's like you're comparing, certain things in regards to that. So it's pump the brakes,
I'm done. We can.
Back when
What does Pat want to talk about?
I have a question for you guys. This is for everybody. This is a change of topic because I'm gonna keep fucking talking because I have so much shit.
Yeah, me too. And I want Pat to be able to talk.
we apologize.
Sorry, Pat.
Okay, so here's a a question. I found this. I came across this a while ago on Barstool Sports. I found on Twitter. If you could play for one fictional sports team, who would it be?
Fictional sports team?
Fictional sports team.
I'll take the Dillon Panthers from Friday Night Lights.
Okay.
And let's
TV show, movie, whatever.
No hesitation. Or the East Dillon Lions. Either of the teams, Joe, from Friday Night Lights, I'll take.
Wow. Who would I play? You know who I'd play for? I would play for what was the team in Varsity Blues? What was their team? I can't think of
West Canaan. West Canaan.
Yes, the West Canaan Coyotes, right?
Yeah.
I would play for them. That would have been a fun team to play on. Plus, I got to play football. I loved football in high school. Pat?
Joe, it's 31-21, Joe.
Oh, don't be telling me that. That scares me.
And they just missed a field goal.
Darth Pat, what fictional team would you play for?
The Texas State Armadillos.
Nice. Very awesome. And Theo? Uh-oh. He's frozen. He's got no audio.
That team as well.
You keep freezing, Joe.
Oh, do I?
What'd you just say, Joe?
I said I was actually. Here it goes. I'm getting poor connection on my internet for some reason. Anyway, I was leaning towards the team that Patrick mentioned. I was definitely leaning towards that team.
Nice.
The team
they just seem to have the most fun, even though they only won one game.
Yeah. So here's the team. I wish it wasn't in the city, because it is the cesspool city of the Midwest when it comes to sports teams. But I would have had fun playing on the Indians in the major league. I really would have.
No chance I'm picking that. No chance in hell.
Well, that was kind of, I was leaning, that was another team. I was like, damn, why'd it have to be Cleveland? Why'd it have to be fucking Cleveland?
What better team to make fun of?
Yeah.
That was a good question, Joe. I like that question. That was a good one.
Yeah. No, it was, I thought that it came across, I was going to bring it up on the last one that we did, the open show on, open podcast, but then we were talking about sexual stuff, and you guys cut me off, but wouldn't let me talk about the
here we go.
shower.
Joe's gonna try to squeeze in his titty bar story.
my shower room, titty bar.
Pat can't wait to hear that story.
I'm gonna let Patrick talk. We're kind of just rambling on about LeBron and all that bullshit.
Pat, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I'll keep this as brief as I possibly can, since I had a few issues. I had a few issues with some of the things that you guys said, but I want to focus on just one thing. Just one thing.
Here we go.
I personally, to be honest, could give a tuppeny fuck as to who the greatest of all time is between LeBron and Jordan. I do not fucking care.
All right.
This is what pisses me off. Entitled sports writers who wish they could write fiction. And I'm talking about the article that Matt sent to us from Rob Parker on Deadspin with the title LeBron's Ugly Truth, He Cheated Us and the Game. I would tell people listening to this to go read this article, but this article is a piece of horse shit, okay? It is bullshit. It is horse shit. It is pig shit. It is any kind of shit you want to describe, okay? And here's why. He thinks that because LeBron went and did things the way that he did things, that LeBron therefore cheated people out of what exactly? a narrative. Guess what? Life doesn't fucking work that way. Life is not the narrative that you want to write. Life happens while you're sitting around doing other things, okay? Life does not play by your wishes. And every sports writer will do this at some point in his fucking career. He will lament that he didn't get to write the story that he wanted to write because the outcome of the game didn't go the way that he wanted to, or because the actions of an individual player were contrary to what he wanted to write about, or something or other. You want to go write your fucking story about how this great team kept getting denied again and again and again and again, and then they finally got past them. Guess what? Go write a fucking novel, okay? Do not report on sports. You're not going to get it the way you want it to be. LeBron does not owe anybody anything. LeBron is responsible for one person and one person only, himself. If he wants to go to Miami to play with his friends because he thinks that's the best chance to give him because that'll give him the best chance to win, he's fucking entitled to do that. If he wants to go back to Cleveland because he thinks if he can just win just one there that he'll be the hero for all time in the city, he's entitled to do that. If he's disgusted with the way that it's going there again, or it's not playing out, and he wants to go somewhere else to play because he lives there and everything, he's entitled to do that. That's what modern day sports free agency is. Now, you guys talk. They talk about the Pistons finally got past the Celtics. He talks in this article. The Pistons finally got past the Celtics. The Bulls finally got past the Pistons. That's nice. That's great. And they were the same teams and everything over and over again. I don't really know what NBA free agency was like back then. I don't know how easy it was for players to switch teams. I seem to remember the NBA free agency revolution really occurring more in like the mid '90s when players started switching teams. But those guys at an insane rate.
Those guys back then wouldn't have done that though. Like even if they would have had a chance.
No.
Don't point at me. Don't point at me like that, Pat. Don't you fucking point at me like that.
I am pointing in general. I am not pointing at anybody.
It is because I don't agree with him. He's pissing me off. So
anybody.
Fuck LeBron. Fuck LeBron. That's it, Pat.
This has nothing to do with LeBron.
Yeah, it does.
This has nothing to do with LeBron.
I think that article was fine, and I don't have a problem with it. So you're pissing me off because I like that article, and I think that guy was right. So LeBron did cheat us. He did cheat us.
Okay,
somewhere in this.
I'm disagreeing with you. I'm allowed to do that.
You are.
My point is,
you watch like 5 games of NBA, and how many NBA games have you watched in your life?
Right, hold up. It's not about how many games you watch. That you can't throw that out because he's entitled to his opinion as talking about a sports writer, not about. He's not talking about the game.
He probably has a problem with that sports writer at this point. So
I really couldn't. I couldn't pick this sports writer out of a lineup. I couldn't say one other article that he's written, except if I clicked on his name in the archive to see what other shit he's written. And I said,
finish your point.
He's not the only sports writer that's ever done this. I'm singling it out because it's what just came along the line here. You cannot tell me that players back in the day wouldn't have switched teams if they had the ability to, because once they had the ability to start switching teams, they did. All right, this is going back years and years, but you know what? The Brooklyn Dodgers couldn't get past the Yankees in the World Series when they got to the World Series. They lost to the Yankees in 1941, 47, 49, 52, and 53 before they finally beat them in 55. And in the years when they weren't getting to the World Series, they were suffering like the horrible losses to the Giants in the 1951 playoff with the shot heard around the world and everything. They had a terrific lineup, but they always had kind of, somewhat not great pitching. You honestly think that if the Dodgers had the ability to go out and sign the top-tier pitchers in the National League at that time, like Robert Roberts and Warren Spahn, that they wouldn't have done it, that they wouldn't have done everything they could to bring in other players just so they could get past the Yankees,
Absolutely.
Which they finally did one time? But it was also at the end of those guys' careers. Pee Wee Reese was almost done as a player. Jackie Robinson played 1 more year before retiring. Roy Campanella played 2 more years before he got into a car accident that, ended his career, unfortunately. Duke Snider and Gil Hodges were both just about done. The team was at the end of its run when it finally got a goddamn win, and then they moved to Los Angeles where new players took over and they went on another winning streak. But you cannot tell me that players wouldn't have switched teams out of frustration.
I didn't
out of just
say
the opportunity
I wasn't,
to get more money.
I wasn't saying everybody. I wasn't saying everybody. I was specifically, I meant Bird, Magic, Jordan, those specific players who are iconic players. I don't believe they would have done that. So I'm not necessarily saying the whole NBA. I'm saying certain players who I hold to a higher standard. I don't think those guys would have done that. So those are the guys I'm speaking of, and those are the guys that we put LeBron in a discussion with, trying to say he's better than those guys, and that's one of the reasons I don't think he's better than at least those three guys, because those three guys would not have done that. So I'm meaning the iconic NBA players like that, not the whole league. I'm talking about specific players that have come up in the same sentence with LeBron, trying to say he's better than them, and that's one of the reasons why I would put Magic and Bird ahead of him still, and Tim Duncan even I would put ahead of LeBron still. So there are guys specifically that I don't think would have done that, Pat. So maybe you're right. There are guys that would have done it. I'm not saying that. I'm saying specific players, iconic players. Back then, I don't think they would have done that. So
Duncan's the only one who I think is a real apt comparison there, because Bird and Magic and Jordan still came up in the era where guys weren't switching teams like that. Because, for whatever reason, whether, again, like I said, because modern free agency hadn't really hit the league yet, so it was still kind of a foreign concept. Maybe they did have that loyalty. Maybe they would have stayed with those teams their whole career if they had the opportunity to leave. I'm not certain of that. Again, I would lean towards, they probably would have. But again, my problem again is that sports writers are the most entitled group of pricks on the planet.
I mean, they are. They are. I mean, that's fine.
They love to build somebody up, and then once they've built them up to the top, they love to smash them down.
Well, yeah, there was that one sports writer that did it to Jordan.
To me, that's what they've done to LeBron over the last several years. Again, I don't really have strong feelings about LeBron one way or the other, but they want to control the story. And sometimes, again, the story just doesn't go the way you want it to. This guy wanted LeBron to stay and keep winning in Cleveland, fine. This guy wanted LeBron to go to the Lakers and lose, fine. That's not what happened. You don't get to go write a story then where you're basically whining your head off that LeBron somehow cheated everybody who was watching the goddamn NBA. By that same logic, then the Warriors cheated the NBA from the moment they signed Durant in the last couple of years. And I don't really remember there being so much outcry among people who are on this podcast about that. I personally didn't give a shit because, I don't watch the NBA frequently. But my point is, if you're a sports writer, you cannot be so goddamn bitter about this as to write this kind of a bullshit story saying, I was cheated by LeBron switching teams so often. That's modern sports. Right. Guys are going to switch teams. Guys are not indentured servants to the teams that own their reserve clause anymore. That's not the way it is. This is why I get sick of listening to any old sports media personality. It's like, oh, well, you don't root for the players anymore. You root for the laundry. Yeah, because back in the day when you were a kid and you were a teenager, they weren't fucking allowed to switch teams unless the team said, we're sending you to Kansas City because we don't fucking want you anymore. So it's a different fucking time. Yeah. And I'm just sick of reading articles like this. And that's why I don't read much sports art, writing anymore, because it's just so much whining and it's just so much bullshit. It is hard to read a lot of stuff.
I would say that it is hard for me to read a lot of stuff anymore.
And a lot of the articles,
you want to go read the classic underdog story and everything. Like I said, go write a fucking novel.
Right. And the thing with sports writers too, the people that like the story that a sports writer puts out, like in AJ's, point, he likes it because he agrees with the article itself, the premise of the article, where other people are going to be like, that's a bullshit article. That's, sports writers are writing to the people that they think will agree with them in the way that they feel. Because it's all about a feeling. It's just like our opinion. It's an opinion. It's a feeling of how we view the game and our thing. Sports writers are, in my opinion, should be objective, not put their personal feelings into a story. You're supposed, as a sports writer, in my opinion, again, you should be reporting the facts and how things played out, not how you feel they should have played out. So, But that's just the way it is. People are always going to put their opinion into anything that they put out there. It's, nobody is 100%, I don't feel, is 100% completely objective about everything in life. It's just, I don't think that's possible.
I mean, you know what my LeBron narrative was supposed to be, don't you? He wasn't supposed to have taken his talents to South Beach back then. He was supposed to have taken his talents to the Garden. That's all that we were doing. We were clearing the decks for years for LeBron to come play for the fucking Knicks, and everything was about LeBron wants to play for the Knicks. LeBron's going to come and be the savior of the franchise. Oh, that didn't fucking happen. I had to get over that. I did. Fucking move on.
At one point in time, I think LeBron was going to come play for the Sixers, too, I thought. LeBron was going to play for everybody because when he was leaving Cleveland, he's coming to somebody.
They dick teased you twice back because then you thought you might get Durant, too.
Oh, yeah, we were supposed to get Durant and Kyrie last year, yeah. Trust me, not for one microsecond did I think Durant or Kyrie was going to sign with the fucking Knicks. The Knicks are going to be a perpetually pathetic. The Knicks are going to be a perpetually pathetic franchise until somebody forces fat ass Dolan to sell the fucking team. Yeah. It's amazing the Rangers have been able to remain somewhat competitive and then do a rebuild here in the last couple of years, despite him owning them. It's just because he just doesn't give that much of a shit about the Rangers.
So let's talk.
Joe, it's 31-28.
I know.
Do you see his face as the podcast has been going on? His face has gotten more and more discouraging as the podcast is going on because he knows the score. Stop telling him to fucking score.
Well, I didn't know he turned it on. I didn't know he had it on.
Meanwhile, Alabama's pulling away from Georgia.
Yes.
And I see the Astros have the bases loaded in the top of the eighth, but there are 2 outs and they're down 4.
So I want to kind of change our little direction here because I have a question for AJ. Is there any recent wrestling news that we should hear about?
There was the draft.
They did the terrible draft.
Sweet.
They wasted everybody's time on the draft, and instead of having 5 people just switch shows on each show, we did a draft, and we drafted people, and we did rounds, and wasted people's time.
We're going to redraft both shows, and 80% of the people are going to stay where they are. So
we're going to hype it up. We're going to hype it up like it's a really big deal, and then it really isn't.
The joke's on you for watching.
We're just moving Seth Rollins or Rey Mysterio feud from Raw to SmackDown. There you go, guys. That's all with that one. So instead of Monday night, we do that on Friday.
I saw some blurb this morning that said Meltzer was reporting that they wanted to make sure that the 3 hottest storylines were on SmackDown so that the Fox ratings would be as high as possible. And the funny thing was he didn't list the storylines. He just listed the performers in the storylines, and he listed those performers as being Roman, Bayley, and Rollins. I was like, those probably are the 3 hottest storylines right now. But it's like, those aren't the storylines. Those are just the main people involved in them.
They could potentially, on Raw, they have opened the door where Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss could be entertaining. They just have to not ruin that.
That's the one. That's one of the few things that I'm actually somewhat interested in. And it's like, you have to think that McIntyre Orton's ending here at Hell in a Cell. So will they move Bray right into a feud with McIntyre? Will they put Strowman in with McIntyre? I'd actually kind of rather they put Bray against somebody else at first, but I honestly don't know who the fuck that is, because who's the number 2 babyface on Raw right now?
Got me on there.
Right, exactly. They just traded him to SmackDown, Kevin Owens.
Yeah. So it's like, Mysterio's on SmackDown now. Owens is on SmackDown now.
Jeff Hardy?
Is he on Raw?
That would probably be.
Yes, he got traded to Raw.
A Bray Hardy feud could be something.
Is
they
sober?
moved AJ to Raw too.
Yeah, but AJ's still a heel, though.
Yeah,
I think that I think it's in their their best interest to switch AJ face. I do.
So I'm gonna tell you guys I was watching the parking lot brawl from AEW.
Okay.
And I know Meltzer gave it a 5-star, and I know AJ loved that match, and I'm and Joe loved that match, and I'm gonna say it was okay. It wasn't like it didn't blow me away. Like I wasn't blown away by that match. So because I was, and maybe it was because I felt like it was hyped up so much because you guys liked it. Meltzer gave it a 5-star, so I'm like expecting this like fucking fire of a match. I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be fucking awesome, and I'm watching it. I'm like, yeah, it's a good match. Like it just didn't blow my doors off. Like I was like all hyped up, and that's one of the problems. Like when people tell me about stuff and they're like, this is so good, like it could be a comedy or an action movie or something, and I go and watch it, and I'm like, huh, I was waiting for something bigger. What the hell happened here? So like, just tell me, like, so I almost like wanted to pipe people if they were going to tell me something, just watch this match, go watch this match. And then I have a little bit better, when you go in with lower expectations, then it kind of blows your doors off. But it was decent. I think there's some really cool spots in it.
Right. And I think for you, because you don't watch it like me and Joe do, like Orange Cassidy coming out of the trunk was really cool to us. That may not have been appealing to you as much. Or when they get in the minivan at the end and the mom flips them off, like you didn't really understand why that was happening. Whereas for me and Joe, we thought that was great that happened at the end of the match. So there were some novelty pieces about that match, the storytelling that made that better. And those were the two of the pieces that really contributed to that. They didn't botch a lot of stuff either, and they used the weapons well, and I think that was part of it. I watch a lot of those matches, and they screw up something somewhere, or they don't use the weapon right, and they manage to find things that were good in a parking lot brawl in a small setting. They managed to work with that environment. Just like when a good example was when like me, you, and Danny did the match in Champs. You got stuck in this situation where you had to do something different, and you had to make it work. And we did that. Those two tag teams are like middle run tag teams, kind of. They're not like best friends or have grown on me, but neither of those teams is the two best teams on eight. They're not even the top 3 or 4. So I don't think anybody was expecting that out of those two teams. So I think that also came down to, hey, this match is probably going to be a 3.5 or a 4, and then they did everything right and basically nothing wrong. And it was like, and AEW's also, and this is something me and my other friends have talked about, the last 2 or 3 months, their main events have been garbage. So that match was actually really good, and they picked the wrong match to put on for their main event sometimes. Even though it's the most appealing, it's not the best match, and it ends up being a shit show. And NXT ends up being better than AEW half the weeks because NXT's main event is better than AEW's main event. So it was nice to see AEW actually have a main event, and we're like, holy shit, that match was actually good. It wasn't a pile of shit like the last 3 weeks before this.
So when I'm watching this match, like the thing that stuck out to me was the one team, they look like the kid from Coco, the movie Coco. So I was like, oh,
like, they painted their face.
Like interesting face paint that you chose there. And then it was funny to me that the one guy got busted open by getting his head smacked into the side view mirror of the car. He's like, oh, he got busted open from the side. I'm like, that was kind of weak, but okay, sure, it's kind of believable. But it was really cool. They did use the metal fence, as a essentially like they do ladders a lot of times, so they use that in that way.
And the finish was really cool. Whatever that move was he did off the top of the truck through that board, that was cool. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting that they had like a random door out there with no handle on it. I was like, like just randomly in a parking lot, you got a door that's supposed to be an indoor door. I'm like, okay, that's weird, but okay. And I think one of the guys fucked themselves up when they did that, like actually screwed up their shoulder or some shit. And were you listening to the announcing? Did you hear fucking JR call it a 2x4?
Yeah, he's like that big piece of wood, 2x4 or something like that. I'm like, dude, that was like a 2x40. I will so fucking big.
For future reference, I didn't know you were gonna watch it, Jeremy. Yeah. That's also part of it. You surprised me when you were like, "Oh, I'm gonna watch that right now." So in the future, I will like not hype. If tell me if we start talking about a match, maybe you should be like, "Hey, I'm gonna go watch that. Don't spoil anything."
So, but no, like I said, it was a decent match. There was nothing crazy that I thought happened. I thought there was a cool spot where they put the guy inside the hood of the car on top of the engine, like did double swantons on him, or senton bombs, or whatever the hell you want to call them.
We just dodged that bullet, Joe.
He hit a grand slam, didn't he?
Oh.
No, I'm watching. I put the Florida State North Carolina game on.
We dodged that one, Joe.
I put it on to see the replay where Florida State got away with a pretty obvious defensive hold.
Yeah, they did. He pulled the shot out of his shirt.
His shirt was stretched out about 6 feet, and then just on the fourth down play here, he finds the guy wide open, and the guy just doesn't fucking catch the ball. So
I mean, North Carolina's football team had no business being ranked in the top 10 at this point, so I knew they were overrated.
That is very true. I mean, I did not. I had.
I know there's teams missing. I know there's teams missing, and if everybody was playing, they would probably be more like 11 or 12. I don't even know if I thought that they were 11 or 12. So, and I told Joe earlier, I don't really think it matters. Because when Clemson's beating somebody 52-7 at halftime, I really do think Clemson is the best team this year right now. So,
well, the funny thing is that probably after today, Notre Dame is going to be ranked number 3, and it's like,
and they looked bad today. They struggled today.
They struggled last week too. I mean, I know they hadn't played in 3 weeks because they had a week off.
But they really struggled.
And again, they got postponed because of COVID, but they are not the third best team, not even close. So,
well, I mean,
the Big Ten, the Big Ten starts playing next week. So,
I mean, there's been a lot of upsets too, like Kentucky beat Tennessee for the first time since 1983.
At Tennessee. That's the first time Kentucky's won at Tennessee since '83.
Yeah, at Tennessee. And then the other one was South Carolina played Auburn.
Yes.
And I think it was their time. I remember what place it was at since 1930. I was like, what the fuck? I'm seeing this scroll on ESPN. I'm like, holy shit. I was like, yeah, this is really a 2020 season.
Well, Matt, you must be pretty happy because Oklahoma's not ranked right now.
I mean, I am, but Texas lost to them. Like, this was Texas this year to beat Oklahoma, and they couldn't even do that. So
yeah, I saw that. I was watching that game. I was like, oh, that's probably fuming right now as Oklahoma comes back.
The Big 12 is defense optional. The whole Big 12 is a defense optional league. They play defense once every 10 or 15 plays. So
it's basically been that way for
it has been
for years now.
3 or 4 years, but it's continuing and it's not going away. It's defense optional.
But that game was crazy because that went into 4 fucking overtimes. I'm like, oh my god.
Well, that poor quarterback for Texas there's only so much you can do. Like, he can't do everything. Yeah. Somebody else has to make a play eventually.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. That was crazy. Like, because I don't watch college football, I really only watch the NFL. I had no idea how the overtime situation worked. I'm like, and my brother was looking up the rules. I'm like, oh my god. And then we looked at its 4th overtime. I'm like, what the fuck?
I actually like the way they do it in college. I actually am a fan of the way they do it in college.
But it can easily get drug out.
It could be tedious when it just keeps balling the same shit over and over and over.
I think if they were going to use that in the NFL, I think you move them back to like the 40 or the 50. Like, I don't think you start at the 25 if you're going to do something like that in the NFL. I think you let them start at midfield maybe.
Yeah, because you have to have them outside of field goal range. Outside of field goal range to start.
Yeah, I'll probably start at the 40 then. 35, 40. Yeah. Believe me, there's not a lot of good kickers in the NFL these days either. So believe me, I know that.
Well, we haven't had a good kicker in about 4 years at Florida State, Joe. So.
Yeah. Oh my God. So.
Just a real quick.
They can afford to draft the get kids.
Just a real quick comment on you guys talking about the parking lot brawl, the AEW match and everything. You're talking about Meltzer's ratings for it and everything. I really think that if you're looking at how Meltzer rates an AEW match, just automatically deduct 1 star. Because he's just become like the biggest AEW fanboy apologist that there is. So I don't think he's real. I don't think he's real objective when it comes to rating AEW matches right now. It's like, and that's fine. He can have his biases and whatever, but I would just say don't take his ratings, at total face value. I would say you lower your expectation a little bit.
The only AEW matches he's given 5 stars or more to, I actually agree with. So.
Okay, but I'm just saying, in general, we know he loves the Bucks, and we know he loves Kenny Olivier. So, I don't think he's very objective when he scores their matches. That's all I'm saying. So.
You mean Kenny Omega? Are you talking Kenny Omega?
What'd I say?
Kenny Olivier? I don't know who that is.
Damn it! That's the cornet in me.
I do it because I've heard that before.
I mean, other people.
I could have called the Bucks by Cornette's nickname for them, which is the Balding Bucks. So.
Oh.
I mean,
Shawn Michaels had that same problem, but my hair's still really long, but it's all falling out, fucker.
I know. It's time to shave that shit.
I mean, out of the Balding Bucks, I don't really get offended to that because that's not true. So
I don't know. I don't care.
They are like their hairlines are receding, so I can see. I mean, it doesn't change the fact of what they do in the ring, but they are balding.
Yeah,
I also think the thing with Meltzer is that I think he just so desperately wants there to be an actual viable alternative to WWE that he's also just trying to make it sound like AEW is the greatest thing ever.
It's so me and my other friends on our podcast, we do the Wednesday Night Wars, and NXT has won like probably 8 out of 12 over AEW. So like probably the last 12 episodes, I'd say NXT's won 8. So I don't. Meltzer he does have an AEW hard on. You're not the first person that said that. I've read other people saying that. So I do take his stuff with the Bucks and Omega with a grain of salt. But the matches that he's given 5 stars to with those gentlemen in it have been warranted. Like that tag team match from earlier this year is still the best match I've seen this year. So it's warranted in that match. He probably the one he gave. The one I went to last year at All Out that he gave a 5 with the Lucha Brothers, that one I'm a little bit sketchy on. I probably would have given that one a 4.75 maybe or 4.5. I don't know if I would have given that one a 5. So
I'm just thinking, you guys we're talking about some balding wrestlers and stuff, and we're all, 40-ish. Pat's, Darth Pat is the youngest
knocking
of us,
on the door.
Knocking on the door of 40. And I'm the only motherfucker that's losing my hair and has been losing my hair since my 20s. I hate you all, just so you know.
Don't have to worry about that. Not my family genes. I'm good. Yeah. Thank God.
No,
I mean my dad still has this. My dad still has his hair, so.
Yeah, but your dad's forehead, I think, starts like at the top of his head now. I feel like
my grandpa definitely didn't have a lot of hair left. It started for him because my grandma would be like, "Hey, you didn't cut your hair. Can you cut his hair?" I'm like, "I shave my head. I don't do anything special. I just shave it off. It doesn't take any skill to do that." And she's like, "Well, you can just do that to him," and he would like look at me and go.
He's like, there's fucking hair, bro.
A couple male relatives in my extended family went bald to various degrees. I don't think anybody ever went completely bald, but my dad didn't have it, so I think I looked out on the gene pool on that one. So
there were definitely times, guys, when I would be at my grandparents' house when I was going grocery shopping for them or after I had gone, and the stuff would just come up, and my grandma would just say off the wall stuff, and my grandpa would just be looking at me and rolling his eyes, and she couldn't see him. So there were some moments like this, just that even in the last year when everything wasn't great. My grandpa always had his sense of humor, And, until, the end, he was still making people laugh, and that never went out of him, that, like, sense of humor that he had. And my grandma definitely said some stuff that I don't think anybody knew what the fuck she was talking about at times. So
well, I remember the last time I saw your grandmother was we came out for your wedding, and we were over at whose the hell's house? We were over at your wife's sister's house, I think. We went over there, I think, for drop off cake or some shit like that.
For which time? For the wedding?
A cake?
I think it was, or was it
when you came for the bridal shower? I don't know.
It was the wedding. It was the wedding because Joe and Tammy were there, and I think Tammy was over at that house too.
I didn't go over there though. I didn't go over to her sister's.
Okay. No. I'm thinking of the wrong thing. I'm sorry. I apologize, Joe. You were not there. That's right. This was for the bridal shower.
Okay.
You're right. But I remember it had been
my grandma was there. My grandma was at the bridal shower.
Yes, and your grandma surprised the shit out of me. This was funny because we go over there, we drop off whatever the hell we needed to drop off that day, and we go over, and your grandmother and your aunt walk in, and I hadn't seen your grandmother for probably 10 years or something like that since the last time I had been out in Ohio, and I looked at you. I said, "When's your grandmother getting here?" Because I wanted to say hi, and your grandmother just had this smirk on her face, and I was like, "I'm sorry, and you are?" And I think I asked her. She's like, "Oh, I'm Matt's aunt." I'm like, "Oh, okay, nice to meet you." And he's like, "Oh, that's my grandmother." And I was like, "What a joke!" She
hadn't really aged, right, Jeremy? She hadn't really aged at all.
No, so I was expecting to see a much older. 10 years is a long time to go between seeing somebody. I'm expecting to see somebody that's much older, and here she looked, she still looked like she was, probably 70s, early 70s maybe. And how old's your grandmother? Like almost pushing like
90. She's almost 90.
Almost 90. I mean, Jesus. I mean, come on. So, yeah, it was just crazy. And it was really funny that she did that too, trying to play it off like she, that wasn't his grandmother and stuff like that.
And a lot of my friends met them. So I think, especially the last couple of years, it got harder for my grandparents to keep track of who was who because they met you guys, they met Adam, they met Eli, they met Zach. It started getting confusing for them. They would always ask me, "Which one's the lawyer?" And I'm like, "That's Adam." So it got hard for them because I have so many friends. My brothers don't have a bunch of friends like I do. They just don't. So it gets hard I think it got harder for my grandparents to remember who was who because I just have so many friends that I've introduced them to over the years. It's hard to keep track when you only see somebody once or twice in 10 years or 12 or 15 years. So, but they tried. My grandpa kind of remembered. It was my grandma that struggled. My grandpa usually knew who was who still. So.
Yeah, I don't remember if I got to see your grandfather that time out. I don't remember if we.
You probably didn't. I mean, he was at the wedding. I'm assuming you saw him at the wedding.
Yeah. I remember seeing him then. Yeah, he was. I remember seeing him, and he was doing okay, but he was definitely not how I remember meeting him last time. So
he was at a rehab facility, and they let him out to come to the wedding. They had to take him back to the rehab facility after because she actually there's a picture that my friend Greg took of me and him at the reception, and it's like my Nicole got it out and put it somewhere for me.
Yeah.
So,
and for all our listeners out there, if you're wondering why all of a sudden we're talking about our good friend AJ's grandparents and funny stories, it's because AJ's grandfather had recently passed away, and so we had. That's also why we had skipped a week to let him go through that process and mourn and all that stuff because we all deserve that time. So, but it's all good now.
He was like my second dad, essentially. Like it was almost like I had two dads sometimes, especially growing up.
Your grandparents are cool. Your grandparents were the cool grandparents that I didn't have. Like I didn't actually have. Like growing up, I had one grandparent, and that's all I ever had. And she passed away when I was 20. So I didn't, and it wasn't like we went over there all the time. And my grandmother was kind of like she was like the typical like old grouchy grandma, so to say. So it wasn't like we went over there and it was like she was giving us cool things or doing cool things with us. It was like, oh, we're going to grandmother's house and we're going to be bored to fucking tears.
If you guys were ever to meet my other grandparents, we're talking about complete opposite. Just they're not cool people. They're not fun people. She's a bitch. Like they're the complete opposite. Yes.
Wow,
we used to call my mom, even my mother's mother. We used to call her the white glove inspector because whenever they came over, we're like, oh shit, the house better be spotless because she's going to go through it with the white glove. Like they're just complete opposites of my dad's parents, like polar opposites.
Yeah,
I never see them.
I didn't grow up with my grandparents either. Like my grandparents on my dad's side passed away both before I was 4. And then my grandparents on my mom's side, I have some memories of them, but they both passed away, I think, before I was 7 and 8. So I really didn't have anything after that. Plus, we had moved from Chicago to PA when I was I think we moved here, and then they passed away like a year or so after we moved here. Moved to Chicago from Chicago to PA, but yeah, I really didn't have that growing up.
Here's a question for you guys. I'll throw this one out there. What is your favorite Halloween movie? Like movie that's about Halloween, like not the Michael Myers Halloweens necessarily. I'm just saying movie that's
terrible. What are you
Halloween related. I'm just trying to throw something else out there because somebody asked me this recently. So
that's a good question. My favorite Halloweenish kind of movie.
Mr. Movie Guy down there, I'm curious to see what Mr. Patrick, the movie guru, says.
Darth Pat, what is
I really
your
can't think
Halloween
of something.
Trick or Treat is mine. I don't know how many of you guys have seen that, but that's my favorite Halloween movie.
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
It's like 4 short stories in a movie. It's like 4 short stories. It's pretty entertaining. So.
Halloween movie.
Man.
I do think Scooby-Doo. No, I don't know.
Or even, you know what, guys? We can even one-up it even, and I'll say, since we're about it, what's your favorite horror movie? We can even add more to it. What's your favorite horror movie if you don't necessarily have a Halloween specific movie?
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. Like, I don't
watch a ton of them, but
no, and neither do I. I would say, like, if I had to put one, this one I just recently watched because it actually just recently came out with, and that was Hubie Halloween.
I watched
Adam
that.
Sandler.
Hubert Halloween. That was entertaining. I liked it.
Yeah. So it's just because like there's not whenever you think about a Halloween movie, you're almost thinking like a horror movie. Like most Halloween movies are like horror type movies, and like I'm just not a big horror fan. Like I find them to they sometimes give me that jump scare or like that suspense.
They're comedies. They're mostly comedies to me.
They're not that's like. I don't know.
I
guess
old '80s horror movies.
No, because I grew up on Freddy Krueger and the early Jason movies, which were, in my opinion, I thought those were scary as shit. So
at that age, yeah.
Freddy versus Jason is my favorite horror movie. So I love that movie. It's fucking great. It's a comedy, but I love it.
But yeah, so I guess I would have to say Hubie Halloween is probably, I would say.
That's funny that you watched that. We just watched that too, Jeremy.
It was funny. It was like the
cameos were great.
Yes, they were, and his character in that movie reminded me like
of the Water Boy.
Somewhat of the Water Boy, and also somewhat of what was the other character that he did that had like that really goofy voice? I can't think of it now.
Little Nicky.
No, not Little Nicky. It was a different one. I'd have to look it up, but it kind of reminded me of like a cross between 2 of his characters that he's done. Waterboy and one more recently.
It was cool to see him and that girl from that he was in Happy Gilmore with. It was cool to see them in a movie together again.
Yes, and the cameos were ridiculous.
Yes, Shaq's radio voice was priceless.
I saw something about that movie where somebody said he made that as punishment for Uncut Gems not getting like Oscar nominations and stuff, and I was like,
I mean, I saw Uncut Gems. I liked it, but I don't think it was the best movie I've ever seen. So I liked Uncut Gems, but I liked it because Kevin Garnett was in it. I liked the story. So.
Oh, it wasn't the best movie I've ever seen. I think it was definitely Sandler's best acting performance, though.
I don't have a favorite Halloween movie because I'm not really
Okay.
big on watching Halloween movies.
That's why I went horror. That's why I threw horror out there.
Yeah, horror movies. I don't know if you want to consider it a horror movie. It's pretty much considered a horror movie. Like, I like vampires. I like The Lost Boys.
Okay.
That's a horror movie. I think it's a horror movie.
I like The Lost Boys. That's one of my favorite movies.
That movie scared me when it first came out. I mean, come on, that was creepy as shit at times.
Yeah, there's some weird shit with that. Yeah.
The original Poltergeist is still the scariest movie I've ever seen. That movie scared the shit out of me when I was a kid.
I love the fact that you're talking about The Lost Boys. I watched that for the first time sometime within the last 2 years or so when it was streaming on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when I clicked play on my computer to watch it, it brought up a screen, there was a screenshot from towards the end of the film that totally gave away the ending. And I seriously, I have a very bad habit. I have a very bad habit when I'm watching movies up in front of my computer, because I have two screens, where I'll have the movie on one screen and I'll bring up the movie's Wikipedia page on another screen, and I'll end up scrolling down a little too far in the Wikipedia page and spoiling it. So I was not doing that.
The movie's fucking over, dude.
I was not doing that from when I was.
That was karma, Pat. That was karma getting you on that one.
And I click and I press play, and it brings up the screen. And just in case somebody who's listening to this has never seen the movie, I'm not going to spoil it. Yeah, but it brings up the thing that spoils the ending and everything. And I literally think I just slammed my hand down on my desk and went, "Fuck you, Netflix." Okay, so you talk. Oh, goody, the Rays won. Fuck you, Houston.
All right, that's good. At least we can be happy about that tonight.
Yeah. If I were to actually pick a favorite Halloween movie, you guys are probably gonna laugh at this, but I'd probably go back to childhood days and pick Disney's animated The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
Interesting.
Mostly because of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, part at the end.
I remember that. I remember that, Pat.
I just love the part with the Headless Horseman. So
yeah.
Like Bing Crosby does the whole big song where Brom Bones is singing it at Ichabod and taunting him, and then he actually goes out and lives it. And of course, there's the everybody's you have to wonder, was it really Brom dressed up as the Headless Horseman and everything? So I just always liked that. I thought that was great classic Disney animation and atmosphere. If I were to pick a favorite horror movie, I don't know, because again, the two that I'm thinking of, you can debate as to whether or not they're actually horror movies, and I'm thinking of Psycho and The Shining.
I mean, I definitely would call those. I would definitely call those horror movies.
Yeah. So. Sometimes you might say that they're not quite horror; they're more just kind of thriller with a psychological bent to them. But so
if you're listen, Die Hard's a Christmas movie; those are fucking horror movies. All right.
Well, okay, there we go. Is Nightmare Before Christmas a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie?
It could be either. It's a holiday movie.
If I were to pick a true horror film in the sense of slasher films or something like that, I think I actually would go with the original Halloween, which I think was very, very well done, because John Carpenter made it. John Carpenter is a pretty good director, which I don't think anything to do with any of the sequels ever. So and the original Friday the 13th is good. I haven't actually watched any of the Halloweens except the first one. I haven't watched any of the Nightmare on Elm Streets except for the first one. I actually watched all three of the first three Friday the 13th, and really the first one's the only one that's really any good.
This was correct. I agree with you on that.
I mean, I remember when I watched the third one, I know that was I think that was a 3D movie back in the day, and I did have fun when I was watching it, saying Oh, that was the 3D shot. Like there was one time where like something's like coming like right at you that kills somebody like an arrow or a spike or something. But like, oh, that would have been cool in 3D.
Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is good.
Nope, he's freezing again.
I like Freddy. I always liked Freddy Krueger. I liked him out of those guys. So I remember. I think there's a part in Freddy versus Jason where the like two kids are in the sleeping bag and he starts banging them. Jason takes the sleeping bag and he's like banging them off the trees. I remember when I went to see that movie. I remember when I went to see that movie. I went to see it with Sean. I don't think you went to see that with us, Pat. I went to see it with Sean, and really early in the movie, like right off the bat, they show boobs, and these little kids, or these kids that shouldn't have been in the movie, started giggling, and this big dude was like sitting in front of us, and he's like, "Shut your mouth, kids! You aren't even supposed to be in the theater!" Like he screams it. Where's your parents? Sean's like, "Oh shit! I don't want to piss that guy off."
Shut the fuck up! I'm trying to watch people get slashed to death.
I think that. I think the final battle between the two of them is like 40 minutes of that movie. It takes like 40 minutes at the end. The last battle between them, I think it's like 40 minutes.
And they were going to make a second one of that movie too. Lord have mercy if they would have.
Well, they did make two Alien versus Predators.
Yeah, because one of those wasn't enough either. So I think that does bring us kind of close to the end of our show, and I think somebody has a stumper for us, if I remember correctly.
Who won the Cup final in 1948?
Mr. Freeze has a stumper for us.
Yeah, I have shitty internet tonight. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know. I'm just fucking with you.
No.
I was seriously about to say, why did you call him Mr. Freeze? It's midnight.
I was going to say something about the Mr. Freeze thing. I was going to do my Arnold voice from Batman, but I changed my mind. I'm not going to now.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
I'm going to freeze you.
You're not sending me to the cooler. Hey, the best part of that movie, though, the best part of Arnold as Mr. Freeze, though, is when he's forcing his henchmen to sing along to the Snow Miser song from the classic Year Without a Santa Claus special. Keep singing! Sing!
Yeah, he seems believable as a scientist.
So funny.
Oh man!
All right, so here's a stumper. The wrestling question one. Wrestling stumper. What wrestler faced a member of Evolution 3 years in a row at Unforgiven 2005, 2006, and 2007? There's your hint. The years.
What'd you say?
So who was a member of Evolution?
No. What wrestler faced a member of Evolution 3 years in a row at the pay-per-view Unforgiven in 2005, 2006, and 2007?
Undertaker.
And that's your only clue.
Undertaker. I'm going with Undertaker.
Wrong.
Yeah, I know. Because he was only wrestling WrestleManias, I think, at that time, too. I have a second guess once they guess. Yeah, because that's not annoying at all. Like a freaking child.
I'm going to say Triple H.
Ooh, Triple H.
You did hear. Never mind.
You did hear that they faced a member of Evolution, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Evolution kind of broke up in early 2005, so when Batista turned on them.
While we're waiting for AJ, Jeremy, this fucking fantasy league that we're in together, it's like fucking trade heaven. Jesus Christ, everything I can pop up is like, there's a trade. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
These guys want to trade all their players away.
Like, fucking trade happy. Jesus Christ. No one wants to trade with me. That's fine, I guess. I don't give a shit. Okay.
Oh, how about that?
So, quick update.
Did you just look it up?
Don't know if he would have been in my top 15 guesses.
It is very odd. It is extremely odd.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'll give you another hint.
No, I don't know. I don't want another hint because I don't want it. I probably have no idea. I don't really know the answer to this. So whatever I'm going to do is just throw out a guess. So
throw it out.
Well,
and it's
I'm wearing red. There's a specific fruit that's red. We'll do it, Dan.
Carlito.
I spin the face of people who don't.
I would have never got that either. So.
Wow,
Carlito. Yeah. So when I saw that, I was like, wait, what? So I went and looked at it. I was like, oh, shit, really? I don't even remember the storyline he was in, but he faced, it was like all 3 years. I think 1 year was Orton. 1 year, I don't think he wrestled. Did he wrestle Flair, Pat? Did you look it up?
Yeah.
I think it was everybody but Flair, I believe. He wrestled.
No, at 05, he wrestled Flair for the Intercontinental title.
Yeah.
And if I recall correctly, Flair beat him, and then Flair spent like the rest of the show like in a limo with a couple of women and a couple of bottles of champagne.
Yes, that is correct. I remember.
2006, he wrestled Randy Orton, and then I think it was like the next night was when like Edge and Orton formed Rated RKO. I remember vaguely watching that match, and I remember Carlito did that move where he would like kind of jump on one rope then the other, and then
got the RKO out of nowhere.
Then do like a dive, but like he usually did like a moonsault off the rope, and this time he just did a dive, and of course that was so Orton could hit him with the RKO as he came flying off the rope, and that was how that match ended. And at 07, he wrestled Triple H, and no fucking memories of that whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't remember that either.
I literally never even remembered Carlito ever wrestling Triple H. So, yeah.
Interesting. That was a good question, Joe. Joe, have you seen the Skittles commercial with the Street Profits and Ric Flair?
I have.
That commercial's hilarious. When he's like, when what's his name is dressed up like Naomi, and they're like, "Do you feel the glow?" And he's like, "No."
No. Because what's his name is like dressed like the Ultimate Warrior. He's like, yeah. Warrior, Naomi. It's kind of like, it was just very odd that he did that.
Oh, man. So, I'm going to say that brings us to the end of our show. Since we have really kind of we went all over the place. A lot of majority of our show is talking about LeBron, or LeBum as he's better known to some of us on this show.
Can I just say?
No, you cannot. Go ahead, Darth Pat.
Because the basketball season is now over, and we don't know when they're going to be starting up again, probably not until after the turn of the year. Let's just put LeBron to rest for a while.
I'd be more than happy to put him to rest for a while. He could retire, and that'd be great.
The one thing I did tell Joe real quick about the NBA is they did do a really good job of maintaining the bubble.
Oh, yes, they did. They deserve a ton of credit for that.
The WNBA, the NHL, and the NBA all did a really good job of maintaining their bubbles. Other than Lou Williams and his chicken wings at the titty bar, that was the only issue that the NBA had. So
goddamn good chicken wings, damn.
So I did kudos to them for doing it. The bubble worked for them. So
yeah, I mean, baseball didn't do a terrible job. They didn't do an overwhelmingly great job. They did have tests and games postponed and shit. But I'll tell you this. I mean, football is. I knew football was going to end up being a shit show, and I knew college especially was going to end up being a shit show. So I'm not surprised.
All right. So that does now. I guess that brings us to the end of the show.
Well, before we go, what? No, hey, we gotta have the tease. Otherwise, what are they coming back for? It's certainly not my ravishing good look.
Jeremy's got it.
Okay.
Don't worry.
I'm sorry.
I believe I still remember the topic. This should be good.
Women.
Yeah, sure. We can talk about women. Yeah, why not?
That's what Joe said. That's what Joe said. Women. There's more to add on.
We're going to talk about our favorite Sports Illustrated cover models. Swimsuit issue cover models.
That'll eliminate any potential to have any women listeners ever.
We're talking about covers of females on covers. I have containers of
here we go.
Playboy magazine.
We're losing freaking track real quick. It's going off the rails. It took this long, but we finally fell off the fucking rails.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
So we just want to thank everybody for listening or watching wherever you're catching this on whatever media stream you get this. We are just thankful for you guys watching, listening, because without you guys, this is just a complete bullshit session, whether we're talking about a specific topic or we're just really just bullshitting the time away. Without you guys listening, we're just doing this for, well, who knows what fucking reason. So we do appreciate you guys listening in, and wherever you catch it, just tell others about it. Try and get them out there to listen to it, because I think we're doing a pretty good job of entertaining just not ourselves but everybody else too. And we do want you to tune in next week when we will actually be talking about women's wrestling. And we're gonna do some maybe the go to women's wrestling, or just talk about some of our favorite wrestlers, and we gotta put the women out there, because the women are just as important in wrestling now as the men are, because they are one of the reasons that I tune in for some of them women's matches, because some of them women matches are really freaking good now. Until next time, we'll catch you on the next episode.